few more things to learn regarding the node editor. So if you've noticed, each of these inputs, image, noise, that's fed into our principled BSDF, that's then fed into our material output. They have some nodes, rather some sockets, on the left-hand side that are things like vector and scale and detail and so forth. This means that we can also feed into our images, into our noise textures, etc. So let's actually disconnect the noise texture by just clicking and dragging those sockets. And let's instead feed the noise texture into the image. And doing so will really create kind of like a noisy pattern that the image is then going to be interpreted through. So instead of seeing like this, our typical like wood planks on a sphere, let's take in the factor, which is going to be a value. And actually, let me clarify that. You can feed in the color, which is going to kind of feed in on the color channel and kind of create this kind of really almost like fractal look. But if we feed in on the factor, it's going to actually feed in the, let's undo that. It's going to feed in a number value instead. And it's going to get like some similar results, but I think what's important to note here is that the gray values are going to represent numbers and numerical data, such as like the scale, detail, roughness. The yellow sockets are going to refer to any sort of like color. So you can see over here, this base color is yellow, the subsurface setting is a number, and so on and so forth. So right now, this is going to either impact the wood texture with like color or this kind of factor value. Because it's a noise texture and it's kind of that procedurally generated noise anyway, they're going to have some similar results, but just important difference to note. All right. This noise texture, you notice, also has a vector. So something could feed into this noise value, which feeds into the texture value, which feeds into the base color and all these other settings. So interesting stuff. All right, so now that we've got this fed into the vector, you can see that as I increase or decrease the scale, we're getting some very interesting results indeed. So now this noise is making this feel almost like, goodness, some sort of like topographical terrain, or maybe like the inside of like a geode. We're really getting some interesting results there. I can change the detail value, so reducing that gets now almost like these interesting like alien-like striations. I can mess with the roughness, which we're seeing in my preview a little bit more because I actually have a reflection, but not in my render as much. I think because then this is going to then feed into the roughness setting here. So if I disconnect that, let's see what happens. Yeah, with a low roughness, we get a very sharp, super tight highlight. And with a high roughness, we're losing that highlight. So maybe a value of, let's see what we get. Maybe like a value of like 2. Yeah, now it's like nice, shiny wood there. So we can disconnect these things, we can reconnect them, we can do a lot of different adjustments. We can mess with distortion and get some really interesting results indeed. So now we've got this like almost like polished wood type of look. One more thing I want to show is that we can also kind of inject different settings in between these connections. So right now noise goes into wood, goes into our shader, goes into our material output. But let's say we wanted something in here. Like let's say we wanted to maybe add a color mix to this. We can go to add and just search for, let's search for mix, I believe. And we can do a mix color. And we can just drop it anywhere. And then we could take all these off and plug these in and then plug these in there. But instead, the node editor offers us this convenient way of just dropping it over these channels. You can see them highlight. And if I do that, it is going to instantly connect the settings that are available to be connected, meaning The wood seamless texture color is going to now go into this mixer, and then the result is going to go into base color. Now, why does this even matter? Well, let's say we wanted to tint our wood texture just a little bit. This is a way to get that done using a mixer. And I'm showing this here just to show that there are even some intermediary steps that can be taken in order to get some interesting results. And when I say intermediary, I mean, okay, between your image and the shader, they don't always have to be direct connections. You can put stuff in between them to change how they look. So right now we are mixing everything we see here, noise, dark, warm, seamless wood texture, and we're going to mix that with whatever color is here. So let's say we want red wood or pink wood. We can change that setting here, and if you notice, we can even change the blend mode. So let's say we wanted that to be a multiply. Let that refresh, and now we're getting a multiply of pink with the dark wood seamless texture, and the result is something just slightly warmer than what we had before, which is really nice. So I love the blending modes in Photoshop. I use them in After Effects, and now I use them also in Blender just to get little bits of blending happening there with like color and texture. So maybe the pink isn't the best. Let's get a little bit more red in there. And right now the factor is half, so if we wanted to have the factor be 1, we'd get even more red tone there. So if we wanted this to be, you know, more of like a polished, you know, red tone or something, we can get that done using this. To get these out of here, we can simply disconnect. Oops. Let's disconnect these, and then you can reconnect the color. All right, so that was our before, and then we have our after. We can just drop it back in if we want to reconnect. One other thing I want to show is that all of these settings can get pretty wily over time. If you have just images everywhere and multiple noise inputs and color mixers and everything else, it can get a little bit tough to keep it all straight. So Blender offers this option of framing and grouping things. Now you might not need this for very simple textures and very simple materials, but I want to show it anyway just to make sure that you have it available in the future as you get into more complicated materials. To frame anything, meaning just to draw a square around it, and I think I've got it in a sample texture here. So you can see I drew a frame around this working wood group. To draw a frame around anything, select the different inputs, the different nodes that you want to frame, and hit Control J or Command J for join. And what does this even mean? It's just going to draw a box around it for convenience. It allows you to move the box and move everything at once. It allows you to move these things around inside the frame, right? And the frame will move to group them, or rather, group's not the right word here, just to collect them perhaps. And it also allows you to do things like label this frame. So right now the label's nothing. It could be, oops, wood grain. And then when we have that label there, we will be able to, whoops, there we go. We can color the frame. So if we want this to be like the color of the shader, that could happen. We can change the label size and so on and so forth. To disconnect from this frame, we can press Alt P. So let's see. Let's grab something here and say Alt P. I want that noise texture out of that frame, and that can disconnect everything. We can grab all of the things, Alt P. Sorry, not all the things. Each of these things, Alt P. Let me see. Get out of there, you wood grain. There we go. And there we go. And then we just got that frame label. And that will allow you to get those things in and out of that frame. There is one other option that, again, when you get into much more complicated textures, might become useful, and that is the grouping of your material. So to group, we are going to simply press Control or Command G, and that is going to take a grand output, or rather input, and a grand output. and I say grand, these are my words, not Blender's necessarily, but it's like an ultimate input and an ultimate output. And you can hit the tab key then to like see your group just almost like, it's not like flattening, it's almost like putting everything into a folder really. Or those of you familiar with like Illustrator, this is like a pretty common grouping. So you then hit tab to go in and out of this thing, which is quite wonderful. Now the grand inputs and the grand outputs, these are very nice things that allow you to say, let's say I wanted to have this material have some settings accessible, like for example the scale of the noise. I can take that scale and I can pop it into the group input, and then when I go back to my node group, it just allows me to continue to adjust that scale from this kind of like flattened or grouped setting, and it's just kind of a matter of convenience. So if there's anything that you recall from this video, it's the kind of the benefits of this cascading connection, maybe the convenience of the framing, and the grouping for sure, just because when you get into more advanced materials, this is a way of making your workflow more efficient and keeping your sanity as you're working through the node editor in Blender.